His name's Phill.
And his name is Tim.
And this is Tim and Phill Talk About Games.
A podcast where Tim and myself get together and talk about games we have recently played and discuss topics in the world of gaming.
This week on the podcast, we hold hands, get ready to buff each other, and run side by side into certain death, as we look into the nature of companions.
We'll be asking what makes a good video game companion, how they interact with us as players, and why, in recent times, they've been escaping into the physical realm.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's not as creepy as it sounds.
Like something out of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it's not what is it, The Grudge? It's not The Grudge.
Oh god, The Grudge.
Can you imagine if your companions actually came out of the television?
That
like,
would be a dream
Grudge style?
come true, Phill. That would
No. But and they had all attitude, and they were just like, hey, you should have done this back there. What the hell? You killed that child.
You spent 20 minutes looking at my butt while you went off and made coffee. What the hell?
Yeah, what the hell? All right, so yeah, today...
Those things you were saying were totally inappropriate.
Oh, it's got access to your mic and everything? What were you doing for that half an hour?
I don't want to know.
Nothing. Playing the drums. Yes, as we mentioned, we are talking about companions today. They're quite a oft-used trope in video games. Much more so now that you've got the kind of sweeping epics of franchises that are going on over years and possibly going to be decades if the cash cow doesn't run out.
Which it won't. Let's face it, it won't.
It's not going to do it. Let's just quickly, before we get started, we've got a couple of shout outs to do. I'll do Twitter, you do Facebook. Sounds good.
Sure.
Only, I think, 1 or 2 followers. A couple of, actually, we do get quite a few followers on our Tim and Phill account. Many of them are very spammy followers, and so we just don't give them shout outs. I hope that's okay. If you are actually genuinely like a YouTube SEO marketing person who actually enjoys our show, maybe personally email us, because someone following us on Twitter who's got 300,000 followers and follows, the same number of people back, I'm not convinced that you're real. However, one person that did follow us that did seem genuinely real was Niall Welsh, who apparently is from Perth, so that's kind of cool.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, he follows us on Twitter, which is really nice. Niall, if you've got any questions, if you want us to tackle any topics that you're interested in, just let us know, and we'll do our best to do that.
And from Facebook, we have Belle Woods as well, which is fantastic to get really just anyone follow me.
really anybody.
Really anyone.
Is good.
And the same thing goes, anyone, if anyone has anything that they want us to talk about, just say it.
Whether it be about your a game that you've played recently that you found lacking, or a particular trope in games that you're concerned about, or that you think is interesting enough to talk about, please do it. Belle Woods actually is a member of a writing group that I'm part of, and she plays games with her sons, I think. Son.
Fantastic.
I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, so she's following us, which is great. Yay.
Maybe
I was really happy when I saw that one.
But multiple personalities.
I don't know. I don't think so. But yeah, okay. That's pretty much all the shout-outs we've had. Obviously, the tail has started to expand after our massive rush of follows and stuff from our PAX panel. The tail has started to drop. So that's fine.
Also, Christmas period, everyone's busy. Some people are moving across the country.
Yeah, that's it. That's why we have no followers. Actually, while I'm thinking of it, we did actually finally get a proper rating on iTunes, which is crazy, which means that we've actually had some of you kind folk out of there have actually taken the time to go to iTunes and click on the star rating, which is really, really lovely. Thank you so much. It actually means that we actually have a little star rating. It's 4 at the moment, which is good. It's 1 off 5. That's fine.
It means that someone out there is a dick.
Yeah.
Just one person.
Yeah, it was a bot. It was a bot, There was some other jealous podcast that just send a bot.
It was
out
another
to
podcast
rate down.
that had actually somehow managed to gain sentience.
But yeah, if anyone's feeling generous, that's always a good way to help us, is to go to iTunes and rate us up. That'd be great. Anyway, enough with the bullshit. Let's get started. So today we are talking about companions. Companions are found in so many different games and so many different genres that it is pretty broad to talk about them. Like, you have companions in first-person shooters, you have companions in, the obvious companions are the things like RPGs, where you actually have a team of companions. But yeah, there's also stuff like the Stanley Parable, where you could say that the narrator might be a companion. You have things like The Walking Dead, where companions that don't interact with you but provide some kind of moral compass are really interesting. So yeah, we're going to try and tackle all those different types.
You also have, in Skyrim, you have the companions who are companions, who descended from the 500 companions, but are no longer 500 companions, because they're now lycanthropes.
See, what I thought you were going to say was that in Skyrim you have companions, which are actually just storage closets that walk around and follow you.
Could you please hold these 12 ebony swords? I don't have the guts to actually sell them.
It's very akin to the luggage from the Discord
the Terry
novels.
Pratchett novels.
Yeah, Rincewind. Can you imagine? Oh man, someone has definitely modded that into Skyrim.
Oh, it's got to happen.
It has to have happened, surely. I can't imagine it not. Anyway, I guess the first question that I wanted to ask, obviously, because we like getting to the bones of things, is what is a companion? What do you reckon? What are some rules?
Well, so see, you and I had a chat about this. You and I had a chat about this before, about what actually makes a companion, and it turned out to be a really difficult question that stumped both of us.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you sort of come up with one thing that you think, okay, well, this is definitely a rule. This is one of the necessary components for something to be considered a companion, and then you immediately find an example that is contrary to the rule.
Yeah, exactly.
Exception. That was the word I was looking for.
That's the one.
It's the opposite of inception.
Yeah. Outception?
It's actually not.
It's really not.
But so we were saying things like, maybe a companion is someone that you can't control. But then I would certainly call the characters in the Mass Effect games companions, even though you directly control them, and even get to control, how they progress in terms of, when they level up, what sort of skills do they unlock in what order. So that's not necessarily a hard and fast rule, although I would say that the ability to have too much agency over a character starts to, as you get more and more agency, the less you could consider it to be a companion.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. I think that they would have to, the definition would have to include the fact that they act on the game separate to your intentions in some way. So whether or not it's in between combat, maybe you control in combat, and then out of combat they're making some decisions by themselves or doing things that affect the story.
I think I have it finally. It's not the agency.
It's been 5 minutes. We've cracked it, guys.
This is
now
cancer. Sorry, I watched the Imitation Game last night.
Oh yeah, I was meant to go with you guys, but I was so fucking
but then you
busy.
didn't.
Incidentally, I'm leaving for Japan tomorrow morning for 3 weeks. So I'm recording this. No, I'm just saying to the listeners, I'm recording this really quickly before I have to go and pick my girlfriend up, because I know that as soon as I pick her up, I'm going to get in trouble for having done this. So no one.
Why
tell
aren't we
her.
packed?
But yeah.
The whole. It's after that mentality of long-term problems being solved by machines.
Yes. Yes.
So
where was
what
that
I was
train
thinking, I don't think there ever was a train, Phill.
Ghost train.
The point was that it's not the agency that you have over the character; it's the agency that the character has over the story. I think that is what separates a companion from, let's call it, a playable character. Because the playable character has agency over the story. You have the ability to control the character, who then has the ability to change the way the story progresses. But
replace that story with just game in general, I think.
Oh yeah, so I often...
That's better, because obviously you've got, top-down shooters or whatever, where you have a companion that you can unlock, and they run around beside you and maybe give you some extra firepower or something like
exactly.
that.
So
that's just the game.
When I think story, that's synonymous in my mind with narrative, and also just with just general structure of the game itself.
Sure.
Even a game that doesn't have a narrative still kind of has a narrative, if you know what I mean. It might not be a direct story,
but
it's
a mechanistic narrative, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. The ability to
levels,
progress the game at all is the game's narrative in a way.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing, and that's the thing, is that I mean, the thing that we were talking about before is that, you know, you a companion can't necessarily be controlled 100% because then it just feels like you're kind of just with yourself in a
Right.
slightly different skin, like you're holding your own hand kind of thing. Like you're not really.
It's weird.
It's not really a companion. Yeah, it's weird and sweaty.
Yeah. It's all sweaty.
Yeah.
So,
So,
like,
kind of. Yeah,
For example,
go ahead, sorry.
in Divinity Original Sin, which was in our previous episode as one of the top 5 games of 2014. Go check it out. Click the link. It's over there.
It's just below this post.
Is that it's to the right? When I hope if I'm pointing to the right, I don't know what that will be
Oh
like.
yeah, it's in our previous episode.
It's literally the previous episode of this one. Anyway, the point is that
Wait.
in Divinity Original Sin, you can control. I mean, you create 2 characters at the very beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Now, do you call one of them companions, or are they both PCs?
See, that's the thing. That's really interesting because, and that's one of the ones that I actually thought of straight away when we started saying that, like, can you hold your own hand through the game? And it's really funny because I found playing through Divinity Original Sin, I did actually get that feeling of companionship between the 2 characters that I created. Like, one of them, I just started favouring one of them, and the other one became this kind of companion that I roleplayed to be different.
That's funny. I did exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it's really weird, right?
So I had one character that sort of aligned with what I would consider to be my personal choices, and like their choices were, in my head, they were like the narrative canon for me.
Yeah, they were the things that I wanted to do. Yeah,
and then the other character, on some points she was contrarian, and at other points she was convivial.
I don't know.
I think
Words.
that's the antonym of contrarian. Anyway, the point is, Phill, put it in the comments. Tell me I'm wrong. I love that. Tell me I'm wrong. Spit in my face. So,
Sorry.
so sometimes she would disagree with me, other times she would agree with me, but it would always be based on what I considered to be her personality.
Exactly.
But sometimes they would be disagreeing with what I was considering to be the right answer. So yeah, she became a companion in my mind. She was, even though I was directly controlling what she said.
And you'd get really pissed off because they do the little rock,
like,
paper, scissors things every now and again, and she would
why
win.
Why would you choose that thing? That's so stupid.
It's really silly. So yeah, I mean that's a really interesting case, and I actually think that that deserves probably some kind of, I don't know, essay or something like that,
or award.
Yeah, well, because it's just a really interesting psychological trick in that you have companions, like you have companions that affect how you move through the story, and they unlock different little side quests as you go along, and they'll put their 2 cents into conversations, and they'll, you can control them much like a normal RPG, but just having that 2 characters that you created, and then you kind of, you're splitting your attention between them, but obviously you can never be equally split, as parents, there's always one child that you love more. Don't lie.
You say that it's not. We know the truth.
We know the truth.
You know what? It's the child knows the truth too.
Yeah, exactly. The favourite child always knows who they are.
I knew I was the favourite child.
I think I was close. I think I came second. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm second out of 3. Anyway,
it was hard, but I knew that they hated someone more than me.
I was just
and that's what got me through the day.
Exactly, it was nice and neutral. So I mean, I think that is a fundamental feature of the companion, is that they act in some way that isn't under your direct control, whether or not that's contributing to the story, contributing to the actual action, like the gameplay mechanistically, or contributing to like the overall kind of emotional tone of the game. And I think that's kind of a good way to kind of move into what is it that a companion contributes to a game? Like, what is it that they add to a game?
Right.
Like, what does an artificial intelligence companion, because I mean we are pretty much exclusively talking about artificial intelligence here. We're not talking about when you're actually playing through the game with a person, because that's a totally different
I feel
thing.
like I need to put on my my glasses for a second, which I don't have. I do actually have glasses, but they're not on the desk at the moment. But if I could just
Why?
push the glasses up to the bridge of my nose and say, well, really, Phil, what we're talking about is a virtual intelligence, not an artificial intelligence.
I hate you. Okay, so a virtual intelligence companion is pretty much what we're talking about here, rather than actually playing through the game with somebody.
Yeah.
So what is it that a companion does when it's added into a game that does something better than when you're just playing by yourself? Or what? And actually, probably following on from that question later on, what is it that a companion adds that takes away from playing a game just by yourself?
Right. Well, I mean, and so this is the thing, is I think that the first thing you got to say is that for it to add anything to the game, it needs to be a good companion. A bad companion, or a badly implemented companion, can ruin the best of games. It is one of those things where it's like the cyanide in the center of it that just... it can really, really ruin an experience. The first thing that I would say a companion contributes, somewhat obviously, is companionship. Which sounds kind of stupid on the surface of it, right? But what I think is the important point here is that it, especially in a single-player game, it gives you someone that you feel like you're actually sharing the experience with. And in the show notes, you've written that otherwise it feels kind of masturbatory. And
exactly.
I agree, but I also didn't want to use the word unless you'd also used it first, so I had to point out that you were the one that wrote that line.
I did write that.
Because the thing is, I totally would have said exactly the same thing. It does. It feels really, like, weird. It's like... So, I mean, the great example is playing, Oblivion versus World of Warcraft. When you pick up the sweet new armor in Oblivion, no one sees it. Like, you've got this awesome new armor set and this wicked sword, and you've got this staff that shoots, like, birds in people's faces, and, like, you've got all this awesome stuff, but there's no one there to see it, and it feels kind of very... It almost reinforces the solitary nature of playing. But by having a companion in the game, somehow it unlocks that part of the lizard brain that sort of thinks that you're not alone. And even though you're not really sharing anything with another person, by having the virtual companion there, it does alleviate that sort of solidarity, sort of weird loneliness that you can start to feel in some single-player games. The other thing I would say a companion offers is the ability to have a sounding board to measure your interactions against. And I think that's also something that's really, really important in especially games that focus heavy on actual narrative, like story narrative structure. So when you've got the ability to make a choice or an action, without something to compare that choice or action against, it is kind of meaningless. In the same way that if you put your hand in water and you've only ever put... If one temperature only existed, you wouldn't call it hot or cold, right? You would just say, oh, it's water. It's water temperature.
Yeah.
But having cold water and hot water and then be able to compare the two, that's how you can say, well, this one's hot, this one's cold, this one's much hotter. Without having to compare something against, you don't have an ability to gauge what it is that you're looking at or interacting with. And so when you make an action in a game, whether you're talking about the action in terms of its morality, in terms of its sort of its tenor, or its its
or even just its place in the world. Like if you do something crazy in game and your companion goes, "Whoa, that was really cool!" Like that's showing that what you did is unusual.
Yeah, exactly. And so without that, especially in games that involve sort of fantasy elements, without a sounding board to work that against, you end up in this bizarre magic realism where everything that you do may as well be the most common thing in the world, even though, it's not. Like, you could be causing cars to flip end over end, and if people don't react to that, then that must be a normal thing that happens in this world, right?
Yeah, and you then therefore start expecting something else, like more crazy, to be something that they would comment on, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, and if no one ever comments on anything, then the whole thing kind of falls flat, and that's where you start getting into this very sort of bland... I don't know, I guess you could even call it the uncanny valley for, procedural something.
Wow, that was a lot of buzzwords just there. No,
yeah,
I know what you mean. It kind of
disappeared in my head for a second then. But like, the uncanny valley in terms of how the world is, like the actual environment that you're in, it doesn't feel natural or real. Like you may as well be walking like a ghost through a dream. Like if no one reacts to anything, then there's no point really being there.
Right, yeah. I mean, in terms of a companion, if they weren't reacting to what you're doing, if they weren't interacting with you and helping you move on, then what are they doing there? Like, they're just kind of window dressing
Yeah.
to the whole thing.
And don't get me wrong, I mean, that's been done before. Not particularly successfully, but it's certainly been done before.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I did also want to talk about in terms of like what they add to the game, obviously, is just the ability to set up cool things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you have one player character, you can only do so much. If you have two player characters, or at least one player character and a character that's controlled by the AI, you can set up combos. Like it at a base level, like when you're in Skyrim or whatever, you know, something like that. You know, you can set a trap and then tell your companion to start attacking and draw them to the trap or something like that. You know, there's ways that you can use companions to open up ways of interacting with the world that you're moving through in new and unique ways that you just would not be able to do as...
Or in ways that you never wanted in the first place.
Yeah, sometimes AI does get
Stop attacking that wolf, Lydia. Stop attacking the wolf.
Oh, no.
Why have you aggroed every wolf? I'm sworn to carry your burdens.
Right. Man, the number of times I'm sworn to carry your burdens.
See, obviously you don't have the DLC because in the Dragonborn DLC, they actually add in extra lines of dialogue just for
really?
Lydia. Yeah,
Wow.
because they know it was so frustrating.
Every single time.
So the thing is, especially because we keep going back to Skyrim because let's face it, the Elder Scrolls games do world building at a whole nother level.
They're pretty good.
Like, they are really, really good at creating immersive worlds.
Well, Bethesda in general. Let's just say that.
Sure, yeah. Or at least Bethesda's first-party titles. Some of the third-party titles, maybe not so much.
Fallout was good.
Yeah, I guess that's technically not a first-party title,
companion-wise.
is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, with Skyrim, the companions in Skyrim, I think, were one of the things that really made the game at the time, what I would consider to be next generation. I mean, we had the ability to interact with AI characters, or VI characters, in such a way that we'd never really had the chance to do this before. The one thing that you couldn't really do with the characters in Skyrim was that they had the basic bones for a relationshipy type sort of mechanic, in that you could actually marry certain NPCs, but it was only some of them, and once you married the person, it kind of ended there. And it got a little bit creepy at that point, and it was like, now I feel like I've just bought a slave or a mail order bride. Like, I feel like I've done something a little bit wrong now, because they just sort of go
you are really gone really, really crackly, dude.
Oh no.
Yeah. Like the last time we did. Okay, so actually one thing that I did want to talk about is kind of what happens when you strip away all the functionality of a companion, and what is like kind of the basic thing that could be considered a companion through a game. Because obviously it's relatively obvious to point at RPGs, to point at Skyrim, to point at Fallout. You know, you've got all your good examples of companions and how well-rounded a companion can be in the way that it, you know, is there physically in the game with you. But like, what is the minimum amount of companionship you need to have a companion? You know, I mean, we did talk about this before, and one of the things that came up was that, you know, there are games where there's just a voiceover and it feels like a companion. So something like the Stanley Parable, where the narrator is talking to you throughout the game, kind of feels like a companion.
Yeah, well, see, it's funny because, I mean, again, without trying to actively not spoil the Stanley Parable, but there are different parts of the game where the narrator both is and isn't a companion. Like, there are some parts where he definitely is not, and there are some parts where he definitely is. I mean, he is directly talking to Stanley in a diegetic manner, which is very bizarre, sort of breaking the fourth wall, interesting sort of behaviour.
And influencing the game environment as well.
Directly, yeah.
Yeah.
But then
even something like, say, Portal 2, where you've just got the voice of Wheatley or the voice. Wheatley, I guess, is there with you, and he
Yep.
does move through the thing with you, but he
So is Gladys
effectively
at one
has
point.
no... Yeah, exactly, but they effectively have no real effect on your movement through the game. Like, that's given to you by the portal gun and the way that you move through the puzzles, and yet they are definitely companion.
Well, with the exception of there are some points when certain people try and kill you.
Yes, well,
I mean,
yes.
that does kind of change it in a way. But even
But
then,
I guess this is an example of the fact that they affect the story.
but then see, I would say that Portal is very different to the Stanley Parable in that respect because Gladys and Wheatley are both diegetic characters. They're not narrators. Like,
True.
they are physically there, and they're not narrating what's happening. They are talking, albeit in a monologue, to Shell. Like,
Yeah.
she is a real person, and they are real robots. In the sense that they're in a video game.
But take it one step back and say, okay, say you've got a narrator who is not a character at all. Like,
Right.
it's not even the character who opens the book at the start of, I don't know, A Bard's Tale or something like that. I don't even know if that is how that starts, but
so-
it sounds like it should be.
Bastion-
Well, what if you have that?
Bastion kind of does that. I mean, you don't find out that the narrator is a person until about a third of the way through the game in Bastion.
Yeah, I suppose.
Um,
But again, I mean, that's the thing, is that I still think that even if you had just a narrator, like someone that's completely removed from the game, who's just talking about, how the story is progressing and, like, just telling a story as you're playing it, I still think that would be considered a companion by our definition anyway, because
So long
it is affecting the story. It's explaining the story to you and giving context to you.
Sure, but so long as it was consistent. Like, the narrator would have to be there throughout the entire game. Because I can think of a couple of games where there's
sure.
a narrator at the very beginning, and they set up
but
the
that's
world,
just-
and then you never hear from them again. Like,
Yeah, but that's just expository. Like, that's just... Yeah.
Right.
I totally understand what you mean, is that they're not they don't fit the basic companion definition, which is that they're there throughout the entire game, or if they're not there throughout the entire game, obviously there's a point to it, i.e. Aerith.
maybe they die.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would you bring up such a painful memory, Phil? Why would you do
Aerith
it?
lives! Aerith lives!
That's got to be a shirt, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, like, I still think that would be considered a companion, because they're there throughout the entire game with you, and they contribute in some way to your completion of the game. Like, they must... Yeah, I don't know, it's really hard, because the way that we traditionally think of companions is literally another physical body there with you in the game.
Yeah. And someone who reacts to your reactions as well. I think that's another important thing, is that they don't just react to the things that you do. A good companion will also react to your reactions. Like, if something happens, and then you react to that something, and then your companion reacts to you reacting, that's when you start to get to some really, like, serious levels, like, interaction that makes you feel like you're interacting with a genuine, like, sentience, essentially. And I think that's what you need. Is the best companions are the ones that are the best able to sort of simulate a genuine sort of sense of free will, or at least, like, so having a personality that is more than just they're being there to, swing a sword or carry your burdens.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say best. Like, I think they can be the most impressive and can certainly help you slide into a game. But, like, sometimes the most simplest companions are actually,
Such as?
very easy to project onto. Like, I mean, I think I've got an example there as good companions in the show notes, is Dogmeat. Now, Dogmeat can react in very, very small ways to your movements, and this is in Fallout, and New Vegas.
All
I
of
should
the
say.
Fallouts.
Yeah. Dogmeat is a dog, and he can become your companion, and he does.
Should probably point out that Dogmeat is actually a dog.
He is actually a dog, yeah. But, he has no, dialogue options. Oh, sorry, he does. He has
Yeah, he
praise
does.
and scold, and he barks, yeah. But you still... People have, like, dedicated paragraphs and paragraphs to that character because he's a dog. Like,
So,
and you
here's
get
a funny
so
thing.
attached to him.
Right, with Dogmeat, especially in the original in the original remake of Fallout.
Fallout 3.
In Fallout 3.
In the third Fallout.
In the third Fallout game, I don't consider Dogmeat a companion until you add in the mod that stops him from dying instantly. Because
well, what is it? Steel Legion adds in the talent where you can get. He has puppies, so whenever he dies, there's a puppy that appears at one of the vaults.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Still, I mean that's cool, but like for me, Dogmeat. I mean, I got really attached to Dogmeat because I'm a big dog person.
Yes.
When you first meet Dogmeat, and so first of all, if you've played the original Fallout, and because Dogmeat appears in the original Fallout as well, he's kind of a throwback to that that character. When I found him, I was like, oh my god, I am so excited that I found Dogmeat, and he's going to be my companion now. And then I got into my first battle with some mutons, and then, like, that was it.
Yeah.
He was dead, and I was like, this is the worst thing ever that has ever happened to me.
But that's the thing, that's what I'm saying, that's the point that I'm trying to get across, is the fact that this was barely a character that did anything. Like, he attacks enemies, his ears pick up and he growls when enemies are near, and yet you can project a companionship and an empathy for this character, and that can occur even in like a top-down shooter or something like really simple, like, you know, something like Binding of Isaac, but not Binding of Isaac because that's kind of weird. You know, a game like that where you pick up companions as you go, and maybe your companion gets a little bit stronger and a little bit stronger, and they've been with you through all these levels, and you've gone down to like the, you know, halfway down to the final level of the dungeon, and then they die. You get a little bit annoyed, like you get affected by that.
Oh yeah, it's a genuine emotional response.
Yeah, and they don't talk, they don't interact with you really, they're just there for extra firepower,
right.
And you still feel cut up about it. Well, not cut up about it, but it certainly affects the player.
I see your point. I concede. But I still think that some of the best companions are the ones that...
Obviously, don't get me wrong, like a proper companion is proper impressive, like they are.
It's well proper impressive.
It is well fucking proper impressive. Worst impression ever. But yeah, no, they're the ones that really, if they're done well, they really draw you in.
Yeah.
Like, and that obviously is almost solely on the writing and the scripts of these players and how they interact with you and how they interact with the world.
Yeah.
But I was just making the argument.
Another point is that, for example, you've put in Dogmeat as one of your... you've written subjectively good companions.
Subjectively good companions,
I would say objectively good companions, because anyone who disagrees can go for themselves. I'd say that the first, or one of the strongest, earliest companion memories that I have in playing a game, in terms of ones that have really affected me. I mean, other than, for example, the characters in Final Fantasy and some of the earlier ones like that, but the first one that I felt that was truly human was Alex Vance in Half-Life 2. And she doesn't really do anything in terms of actually helping you. I mean, she unlocks doors. You have to save her a couple of times, which is a frustrating, you know, damsel in distress trope. Although I would go so far to say that Alex, up until the very end of Half-Life 2, was not a damsel in distress. I mean, she had more balls than you did at half the points. But, I mean, let's face it, she does unlock doors for you with her handy little sonic screwdriver.
What's a dog called?
Dog.
Is it just dog?
Yeah.
Metal big thing?
The gigantic physical dog.
I can't remember. It's been so long since I played that game.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Anyway, so when she does have a pistol, but she doesn't really kill things with it. I mean, it does.
Well, her point is not
DPS.
her point is not to add firepower.
Right, yeah, but it was little things with the way she behaved in her idle animations that made her feel very human to me. And that's one of the things that really, really sort of latched on. And when she was in trouble, like, I genuinely had emotional responses to that. Little things like the eyes, the movement of the eyes, subtle twitches to the facial structure, the musculature in the face, which at the time of Half-Life 2, that was all brand new. This was amazingly next-generation physics that no one had ever seen before.
Even stuff like when you were having like a expository conversation between the scientists, when she would turn around and say, just like this silent guy, or something like that. You know, they'll include you in the conversation so that you're not feeling like you're just watching
in a way
movie,
that,
even though Half-Life 2 is very much movie
esque.
Yeah.
Any other game, I would have called that breaking the fourth wall. But it's done so well in Half-Life 2 that it actually feels like it's within the game. Like, it feels like she's just genuinely talking to Gordon, and that you are Gordon.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
The other thing I'd like to quickly point out as well, because I know that we're running out of time, is that one of the most interesting thing that's happening with companions in video games now is that they are actually coming into the real world in the forms of personal assistants. So we're all aware of Siri at this point, right? In that you can ask Siri things and she responds. And Google has the Google Now cards where you can say, okay, Google, and oh crap, now I've set up my phone.
Okay, Google.
Shut up. So you can say those magic words and your phone will start to respond to you. But now Windows and Microsoft has thrown its hat into the pool, or its name into the hat, or its pool into the hat. Something about hats and throwing has happened.
Thrown its hat into the ring?
Thrown its hat into the ring. There we go. I was sure that someone had thrown a hat somewhere. They've now thrown their hat into the ring with Cortana, which is Windows' new personal assistant. So it's going to be a part of Windows 10, which is the new Windows operating system that's coming out. It's already on the Windows 8 phones, the Windows Phone 8 systems that you can buy for some of the less good phones that are on the market at the moment. Don't get me wrong, I'm actually a really big Windows fan, but there are some genuinely bad choices that have been made in the past 5 years.
Oh yeah.
But they've actually called it Cortana, and I think they've actually made a big mistake by not getting the original voice actress in. Jen, I think her name is. It's actually eluding me at the moment. I'm pretty sure it's Jen. To do the base voice acting for this, which would have blown at least 12 million people's minds, which I think is the rough player base of Halo at the moment. So Cortana is an amazing example of a companion who is an AI in the Halo games. She doesn't interact with the world because she's not capable of it, right? She literally lives in your armor for a majority of the games. But she's a constant voice in your ear that's talking to you and you're having a conversation with her. She is a really, really good example of a companion, to the point where I can listen to the soundtrack of a piece where Cortana's undergoing this mental unraveling because of something that's wrong with her code. It's a long story. Just listening to the music that is associated with that event gets me teary. It is a genuinely heart-wrenching part of the game. And she's such a strong character as a companion that it provokes such a really, really powerful emotional response that it can do that. If I could have Cortana literally talking to me and being able to answer questions from my phone or on my computer in the real world, that's a whole next level shit right there. That's some serious shit. That would be...
And then plug that back into a game somehow.
Oh my god, can you imagine? Can you imagine?
It looks like you've been searching for porn a lot.
That's
Do you
why
want to play
use incognito mode, Phill. That's why... but the point is
just
that...
imagine what the game results would be out of that. Anyway.
Oh, exactly, yeah. Probably very relevant to my taste, actually. So... So you can imagine the crossover that we're starting to come into now, and also, you were talking about the Skylanders as well and Amiibo.
Well, more Amiibo, because I've heard a lot of stuff recently about people who bought these Amiibo, and if anyone, so if people don't know about Amiibo, this is the first kind of wave of Amiibo that have come out recently, and they're basically little physical models of Nintendo characters, so your Mario, Donkey Kong, Yoshi, etc. And what you do is they interact with the actual Wii controller, and also the new 3DS has a little scanner on it, and you put the figurine on top of the Wii U remote or the new 3DS. And it reads it, and depending on what game you play, it does different stuff. Now, in stuff like Mario Kart 8, it'll just unlock random things if you've got the Amiibo on there. But the really, really interesting thing is that in Super Smash Bros., the new Super Smash Bros., I think it's just called Super Smash Bros. For Wii, if you add an Amiibo to your Super Smash Bros., it'll actually start out really dumb. and you have to train it up. And whatever you do more, it will start to learn from you. And so, say if you
this is
use
like crack to me.
it's really, really cool. And so, say if you use more items in a game, it'll prioritize getting items. If you use a lot of special attacks, if you're dodging a lot, it'll start to dodge a lot. And eventually people find that they just get their asses kicked by their amiibo once they've leveled it up a bit. And the thing is that people were... So I read one story on the Gamers with Jobs forum, or possibly it was an email on the Gamers with Jobs podcast. I apologise for stealing their content, but they were saying that this person who had bought a Pikachu amiibo had loaded it in and had leveled it up like crazy, and it was a really good amiibo, and they just actually kind of got sick of losing to it all the time, and so they went to the screen where they were to, like, you can reset the amiibo and have it learn again.
Yeah.
And they couldn't do it. They couldn't delete the amiibo. They couldn't delete this personality that they had trained up. So that to me is a really interesting intersection of, the physical...
I can't even delete a 16-year-old corrupted MP3 file. How am I going to delete a goddamn, AI?
Intelligence, yeah, exactly. So I think nurtured. I think it's a really cool experiment from Nintendo. I mean, this stuff has been around for a long time. I mean, you're talking about creatures and all that kind of stuff back on the PC where you could train up. I mean, even Tamagotchi.
I was going to say Tamagotchi.
Yeah, this is something that exists, and Pokemon. The premise of that is pretty. Releasing a Pokemon, not likely.
Not going to happen.
The box, thanks. Yeah, all these kind of games where you train a companion up and they're with you. But just the intersection of the physical, like, that stuff's been around for a while, but just the physical intersection of having a little amiibo that has a code on it that's stored, and you can use it to load up that thing is really interesting. I think it's really smart, because Nintendo is selling those things like crazy.
Oh, and they would, right? They absolutely would. This is totally tapping into, again, it's the lizard brain. Because what brain is better than a lizard brain? It's that part of your brain, that really core programming that craves the ability to nurture and raise something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I am not a...
It's core empathy, like...
Yeah, I'm not a baby person. I have no interest in children. Other people or my own. I don't care about my own children. I don't have children. The thought of it right now, cold sweat. Yeah. Just by mentioning it. But, at the same time, I crave, Pokemon real life puppies. I crave that sense of nurturing and raising an animal or creature or a thing that provides some level or semblance of companionship. And so I think, again, when we're talking about companions in computer games, once again, we're talking about that core part of the brain that has this need to nurture and to raise and to pass on genes. Even if it's not something that actually shares any genes with you, because it's code on a computer screen.
That kicks your ass with the Smash...
Yeah, exactly.
Smash symbol, whatever it is. The one that kicks your ass. I don't know. Smash ball.
Which, honestly, when it's me playing, it's all of them.
Yeah.
They all kick my ass. They don't need the Smash ball.
Hard. They're really good. They're really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we probably need to wrap it up there, because I need to go pick up my girlfriend from work, and then I need to pack for Japan, because I haven't done that yet. We've been cleaning the house and getting it ready for when we leave. But yeah, if you guys had any comments about companions, if you have any companions that you've particularly connected with and want to tell us why, that would be cool. Maybe leave a comment. That would be novel.
That would be novel.
Well. For the record, probably my earliest memory of a companion that I really, really just loved and thought was awesome was a guy called Dekar in the original, or not the original, the prequel to Lufia, which was actually a sequel, which was Lufia 2, Rise of the Sinistrals. His name was Dekar. He was a bodyguard, and he kicked ass, and then I think... The plot was really complicated, but I think at some point he left your party, and I think the reason why he left your party was that he was eaten by a whale, and then he comes back into your party because he's beaten the whale and is just surfing the whale up to your party. It's really bizarre, but he was so cool. He was such a straight down the line guy. I really loved him. So that was my favorite companion from back in the day. So if anyone else has any
what
that they'd like to share,
impromptu competition. Put your favorite companion in the comments list, or Twitter us, or whatever, and we'll send you a video game.
Actually, no, we'll send you an appropriate video game, because I'm pretty sure that we have, or at least I have a copy of Brothers sitting around. And that's a very
good game.
It's a good game for companions, because you play both brothers simultaneously. So you're your own companion, and yet somehow it works. So yeah, okay, there you go. Tell us your favourite companion, and in the comments, either YouTube or the blog, and we'll enter you into a competition to win that. That would be cool. Now, as I said, I am going away for 3 weeks. I'm going to be in Japan for 3 weeks, which is a long time.
Which means you're left with me!
Yeah, so Tim's going to be
Suck it
taking
all,
care
28 of you listeners.
Tim's going to be taking care of things while I'm away. He's going to be posting a couple of reviews. We have started writing essays on the blog, which is kind of cool. Me only so far, but Tim promises that he's going to get into it. Critical Distance, which is an amazing gaming critique website. If you haven't gone to it, it's critical-distance.com. They every month they host a kind of a prompt called Blogs of the Round Table, and they provide a prompt for people to write to. I've written 2 essays. The first one was New Game Plus, which I think some of you read, and the second one is called Player's Choice, was the prompt, and I spoke about how in single player I don't really limit, like the prompt was about how players limit themselves to introduce artificial challenges in games, or just challenges for themselves in games. I wrote one essay. I wanted to write 2. I don't think I'm going to be able to. I wrote one essay which was the fact that I don't tend to do the single player thing, but I actually do tend to limit myself when I'm playing multiplayer. And if that sounds counterintuitive, that's because it is, but you can read the essay at the blog.
And find out why Phill is insane.
Why would I do that? Yeah, so I guess that would be cool if you guys could check it out and give us some response on that. But otherwise, just keep doing what you're doing. We love all our listeners, and we want to talk to you, like interact. It'd be really cool. Email, Twitter, whatever. But yeah, anyway, thanks for listening. You can... Yeah, sorry, I forgot that I'm the person that starts the outro. I was like, Tim, come on. No,
why didn't you say anything?
Yeah, thank you very much for listening, if you've gotten this far. You can find us on the web at timandphill.com, and on Facebook.
With 2 L's?
I know. We say it every week, though,
Tim
and I'm sure that...
Phill with 2 L's.
Yeah, exactly. On Facebook at facebook.com/timandphill, again 2 L's. If you want to contact us directly, however, you can find Tim on Twitter at Dungeon Master, add him as a friend on Steam as Ageotas, that's Ageotas, or at his website, which is corsairsanchorage.com.
And you can find Phill on Twitter at ToothSoup. You can add him as a friend on Steam as Flaxey, which is Flaxeh, or you can find his personal website at toothsoup.com. Thanks for listening.
And happy gaming.